Good morning, Year 6, and happy Thursday. Let's look and see what we've got for you. So today we have got chapter 27 of Tom's Midnight Garden. It's nice to hear that lots of you are really enjoying Tom's Midnight Garden. That's exciting. We've got your next book planned as well, because I know we're getting towards the end of it. And that's another good one as well. Adding and subtracting fractions. We know that Year 6 absolutely love fractions because we're so good at them. There's a little bit of a revision session there with adding and subtracting fractions, if you'd like to have a go at those. In Spag, we're looking at determiners, and obviously we've got this week's writing challenge. So pick and choose what you are going to start with, which will benefit you the most, and then see if you've got any time for any extras after. But enjoy!
Hello Year 6. Today you are on the last chapter of Tom's Midnight Garden. There's only one to read today, and that will be the end of the story. It's a really interesting chapter, and we learn an awful lot about what's been actually going on and start to understand what's happened. So I hope you enjoy that final chapter, very interesting one, and then there are some questions for you to answer at the end. So here are your questions from the chapter that you read today. It was a really interesting chapter, wasn't it, to find out what's been going on and how the time thing has actually worked. Hope you enjoyed that. And your last question today asked you about your favourite part of the story as you finish the book. So here are your questions, and the answers will be on the next page. Here are the answers to your questions. Number 4, obviously your answer's up to you, which was your favourite part, so I couldn't tell you the answer for that when you had to choose. And what I hope you've remembered to do is to explain your reason for your answer and explain your answer quite clearly why you enjoyed it. We're going to go on to some maths now. For your skills practice today, we're going to practice finding some change. Some of you I know find change by doing subtraction, and some of you like to count up for the amount that's been spent up to the money that you started with. Whichever way you use is absolutely fine, or even try a bit of both if you like. Really doesn't matter. The answers are on the next page, so good luck with those, finding your change today. Here are the answers to finding change. Hope you got on okay with that. So it doesn't matter how you did it, whether you counted up or did subtraction. Today, children, we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions. We have looked at this previously, and it's been on some of your skills practices, and it's the one thing that when you've sent me work hasn't always gone quite so well. That this is the one that's sometimes been a little bit of a problem, so I wanted to go back over it again today. Now there's 2 pages where I explain how to add and subtract fractions. If you're really confident with it and don't need to listen to this, then just fast forward to the work. Otherwise you might like to listen to this reminder of how to do it. So these fractions at the moment are not ready for adding up because the denominators are different, and we can't add up until the denominators are the same. Now in order to make them the same, you need to do some multiplying or dividing. So you look at the numbers and think what you could get them both to. Now I know that if I multiply this by 2, I would end up with 14, and then my denominators would be the same. Because this fraction needs to be equivalent, we can't change the fraction, we have to keep the size of it the same. Whatever we've done to the denominator, which is doubling in this case, times by 2, we must do to the numerator to match so that the fraction stays equivalent, stays the same size. So by timesing 2 on the bottom here, I can get 14 on the bottom, which is what I want, so they match. And I must times the top by 2 to match as well. So this becomes 6/14ths. There's no changes to make here because it was already in 14ths. Now that the denominator is the same, I'm ready to add up, and I can find out how many 14ths I've got altogether. Now that's why this bottom one doesn't change. If you think about it, we've got some 14ths here and some 14ths here, and we're going to see how many 14ths we've got altogether. That's why this doesn't change. We've got 1 14th here and 6 14ths here, so that'll be 7 14ths altogether, won't it? And you might recognise that's a special fraction. 7 out of 14 is half, and you could simplify it to half. Same thing again then, these are not, this is subtraction now, but these are not ready for subtracting because the bottom numbers are different. So you'd have to think what they could both go to. Now I know that if I times this by 4, it'll be 16, and then they'll match. So I'm going to times this by 4 to get the 16 that I want. If I've times the bottom number by 4, I must do the same to the top to match, times it by 4, so that's going to be 12. And now I'm ready to go. We're trying to find out how many 16ths we've got left. This is why this doesn't change. So we've got some 16ths here, take away some 16ths and find out how many 16ths are left. If we start with 12 of them and we take away one of them, we'll have 11 16ths, won't we? So I hope that's a little bit clearer for you, and you can look back at this during your work today if you want and just remind yourself. Now on the next page we're going to see what to do when it's less clear what they could both go to. That was fairly clear. If I double that one, I'm going to get that one. Fairly clear for times by 4, I'll get that one. But sometimes it's not quite as clear. So if you look here, you're not going to be able to double that to make that, or times it by something to make that. It's not working, is it? So what we do in this case is we just multiply them by each other to make a whole new denominator. So if I multiply 3 by 7, I'm going to get 21. So I can times this by 7 to reach 21 and times this by 3 to reach 21. Now I've got my denominator the same, which is what I wanted. Now you have to think very carefully what you've done, because you've done something different to this one from this one. So think carefully. To get from 3 to 21 I multiply by 7. So I must now do the same to the top to match. 2 times 7 is 14. Clear your mind of that and then think again, because you didn't times by 7 here. You times by 3 to get from 7 to 21. So you must times the top by 3 to match. So that's 6. And now we can see we've got some 21s here, some 21s here, and we'll see how many we've got all together. So 14 add 6 makes 20, so 20 21sts. Looking at this one here, we've got a 4 and a 5. I'm not going to be able to double that to make that. I'm not going to divide that to get to that. It's not working. So best thing to do, multiply them by each other and make yourself a new denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by 5 to make 20 and multiply that by 4 to make 20. So my denominators can be the same. Now remember, think carefully what you've done. What did you do here? To get from 4 to 20 was times 5. So same to the numerator to match, times by 5. 3 times 5 is 15. How did you get from here to here? You times by 4. So times the top by 4 to match, and you're going to make 8. We can now see how many 20ths we've got left. We're going to start with some 20ths, take away this number of 20ths, and see how many 20ths are left. 15 20ths, take away 8 20ths, you'll be left with 7 20ths. I hope that helps. You can look back at it any time, and you're going to try some of these yourself now. So here are your questions for today for you to have a practice at these skills. Just look out, these are adding and these are subtracting, and then again adding and subtracting. Good luck with those, and the answers will be on the next page. So here are your answers to the questions that you have just tried. Some of you were quite good at simplifying your answers when we worked with this before. This doesn't simplify, nor does this. But this would, you could divide both of these by 2. So simplified, it would be 7/9. So you may have written 7/9 for that one, that's correct. And look, this is a special one, look, 6 out of 12 is half, isn't it? 6 is half of 12, so that would simplify to a half. You may have spotted that. This one here isn't going to simplify. This one isn't. This one isn't. Now this one, both those numbers would divide by 2. So you would have 9 20ths. You may have spotted that that would simplify to 9 20ths. It doesn't matter today whether you simplified them or not, but sometimes in maths questions they ask you to simplify your answer at the end. So you then need to make sure you do it. Hope you got on all right with those. And now you're going to think about your fractions a little bit more by looking at some of these little questions, get you thinking about them. And just note here that on this last one there are you're looking for 3 possible answers. There's different ways to answer this one. So good luck with those, and the answers will be on the next page. So here are the answers to what you've just done. Hope you got on okay with those. and hope that has refreshed your memory on how to add and subtract fractions. Well done with those, and I'll see you another time. Bye for now.
Okay, determiners. We briefly mentioned determiners. We haven't talked too much about them in depth, so some of this information may be new to you, but I thought as we've got some extra time on our hands, we may as well go into depth about them. So, what are determiners? Determiners are words that identify and provide more information about nouns. So they will be more specific about the noun that usually follows them. So they're normally before nouns, but sometimes if we've got an expanded noun phrase, you have an adjective before the noun, okay? So if I look at this sentence here, the noun is children and the determiner is the word the. So it is introducing the noun children. It's telling me which children, not some children, not all children, the children, okay? There are 5 different types of determiner. We've got articles, demonstratives, interrogatives, possessives, and quantifiers. This seems like a lot. Don't stress. The most important thing is that you can identify a determiner. In year 6, you will not be asked to identify different types of determiner, but as you go on to your English language classes in high school, that may be required. So a little head start doesn't hurt. Ones that we are already familiar with are these possessives. These are just your possessive pronouns like his, hers, theirs, who, ours, that kind of thing. So we're not going to talk too much about those today because obviously we've got a lot otherwise. We will be going through pronouns later on in our home learning videos, so keep up for those. But other than that, you're quite good at those. I'm hoping still. So let's talk about articles first. There are 3 different types of article. Okay, a, an, and the. Okay, you don't need to worry about the different types of them, but it's just saying that we are introducing it. So a or an is introducing something new that you haven't already explained to your audience. The is when you're talking about something that you've already mentioned. So if we take the sentence before, the children went outside, I could only use the if I'd explained the children first. If I'd explained who the children were, or that there was a group of children at least, then I can use the word the. So for example, if I was writing a story about a dog, I would say, there once was a dog called Murphy. The dog liked to play fetch. So I'm only going to use the dog after I've explained that there is a dog. If I just start my story by going the dog, I'd be like, what dog? Whose dog? Where's this dog come from? Okay, so don't stress too much about those, but you just need to know that an article is a, an, or the. Demonstratives. These tell you which noun is being referred to. I always think about these when you're having a conversation and you say, oh, can you pass me the pencil, please? And you're like, which pencil? And you go, that pencil, and you point. Okay, that is there. So if I am looking at a beautiful tray of cupcakes and I can say, oh, if I can't have them all, that is, I'm going to point and say, can I have that cupcake? I am pointing at it. It's demonstrating exactly which noun I want. I don't want the other cupcake over there that looks like Mrs. Maguire's already taken a bite out of it. No, thank you. I would like the one that's got a nice blue frosted and love hearts and a little flake stuck on top. So demonstratives are ones that point. When you demonstrate something, you tend to point. That's how I remember those ones. So let's have a look at some demonstratives now. Have a look at these 2 sentences. Try and pick out some determiners, some demonstrative determiners in these sentences. I'll give you a clue, there might be more than one in a sentence. So pause the video now and then we'll look through them. Okay, let's look at those answers. So remember, demonstrative determiners are ones that we would point at if we were speaking, if we were verbalizing the sentence. So if we take the first sentence, Would you prefer this pair of trainers? Oh, so this pair of Nikes or those new Adidas trainers? You can imagine somebody offering you a pair of trainers, saying these ones, pointing out with one hand, or those ones. They are demonstrative determiners. They are choosing which noun you would like. So could Jack and I please have these raspberry donuts for pudding? What's Lydia pointing at? Oh, Lyra, sorry, pointing at? She's pointing at these raspberry donuts. These ones. She's pointing at them saying, come with these ones. Not those manky ones that have been outside all the time. These nice ones over here that are ready and fresh. Oh, love a donut. Right, next up, interrogative. When you interrogate somebody, you ask them questions. So, without me explaining any more than that, can you find the noun in that sentence? Which sandwich would you like? This is your noun, sandwich. So remember, determiners tend to come before nouns unless there's a sneaky adjective. Which of these words is asking a question about that noun? There's your noun. Yeah, which. That's asking you. You're saying which one? And then the other person would reply with a demonstrative determiner saying that one. And they pointed it. Okay, well done. Here are some of them. You've got which, what, and whose. Remember, whose is a completely different word to whose, if that makes sense. Who with apostrophe S means who is, not whose is this. So please be aware of that. Only this one is a determiner. This one is not. This is a contracted form of who is. And the last one we're going to talk about is quantifiers. They tell you how many things are being referred to. So here is my noun. Which is my determiner here? Ah, yes, my determiner is 4 because this is a quantifying determiner and it tells us how many pancakes she ate. Okay, so let's have a look at these. Can you spot the determiners in these sentences? Pause the video and then we'll reveal the answers. Okay, so our answers are a and the. Well done if you've got both of those. The goats hid from a troll. A really good way to do this is to find your nouns, troll and goats, and look before them. So thinking about that in the next sentence, your noun is the word cat. So what comes before it? That cat. That one. Okay. Helena had 3 boiled eggs on her plate at breakfast time. So here are your nouns, boiled eggs and plate. So you've got a quantifier of 3 and you've got a possessive of her. Okay, 4 more to have a go at. Find the nouns first if you're struggling with this. Find the noun, what comes before it? Okay, so let's have a look. So in the first sentence, we've got the nouns chickens and garden. So we've got some chickens in, oh, I've missed one. Nobody look at that next answer. I've missed one on underlining, sorry. Some chickens is a quantifier that's telling me how many, and our is a possessive determiner. So the next one, after lunch, I had a yogurt. That's an article. Remember, there's only 3 articles, and 2 out of those 3 begin with an a. So a and the. Santa has many reindeer. Here is your noun, and before it is your quantifier determiner. And the last one, there are very few sea turtles. There is your noun. Oh, I'm not colour coding this. Oh no. Sorry, I do apologise. I like a colour code. And there is your noun. So you've got few and the wild. Oh, I've done a bad job of remembering these. So you've got, there is your quantifier. There's only a few sea turtles. And there is your article, the wild. In this case, the word wild can be an adjective. So you could say there were wild monkeys. But here, wild is a place, so it is a noun. And your very, very last one. So this is all about articles. Remember that there are 3 articles. There is a, an, and the. Can you use those in these sentences correctly to complete the sentences? So pause the video and have a go now. Okay, in the first sentence, we should have an. When we use the word an, that means that the noun following it or the word following it starts with a vowel. E is a vowel. So Queen Elizabeth II has got a daughter called Princess Anne. We know that it's an a, not an an, because daughter doesn't start with a vowel, it starts with a consonant. And the last one, being kind, is a very important character trait. Well done if you got those 3 correct. You have revised determinists. Okay, team, I have got for you in Okay, so your purpose is to enthrall, to engage, to entertain. So these are both descriptive pieces and their pure purpose is for entertainment. When we talk about entertainment or engaging, we know that the reader wants or enjoys reading. When we talk about enthralling somebody, we hook them in. They hang on the author's every word. So these texts don't just engage, they hook the reader in. You can create some nice tension in these texts. So let's have a look at some of the features of Tom's Midnight Garden text when he just opens the back door and discovers his secret magical garden. So one of the features that we can use is an ellipsis. There's one up here and there's one down here. Now ellipses create tension. They add an extra long pause. We know when we read out loud, we pause slightly for commas, longer for full stops, and ellipses, they create tension. When an author reads an ellipsis, they pause, whether they're doing it in their head or out loud, and that creates just a moment of suspension. If I read out the first little bit for you. Never having had an occasion to use the door, Tom had no idea how it might be secured at night. If it were locked, and they kept the key elsewhere, but it was not locked, he found, only bolted. He drew the bolts, and very slowly, to make no sound, turned the doorknob. So that pause there is almost a revelation. So we can imagine that at that point, Tom's walking downstairs or walking towards the door and thinking, if it were locked, where would they keep the key? But as he sees that door, that ellipsis shows that he sees that door and realizes that there's not a lock on it, just a bolt that he can undo. So that ellipsis creates tension because we're like, oh, what's happened? But what? But what's he seen to make him stop in his trail of thoughts? So those complex sentences at the beginning also create that sense of his internal thoughts. We know that that is what Tom is thinking as he's moving towards the door. That those couple of extended complex sentences at the start make us think that we are in Tom's head. We're hearing or reading what he is thinking at that point. So we have got semicolons all over the shop in this text, which is lovely. To join clauses. So in the text, in the sentence that I've just read, which is, oh, can't draw on that, there. But it was not locked, he found, only bolted. That's linking the two sentences together. I could have swapped that semicolon for something else. I could even swapped it with the word it. He found it only bolted, or it was only bolted. But that semicolon is chopping it up a little bit more. It's chopping those sentences, it's getting rid of unnecessary words, it's making it more concise, and that at that point is like the revelations in Tom's head. So he's going, but it wasn't locked, he found, only bolted. He's like, yes, Thank goodness, it's not locked, it's bolted. Brilliant. It's that sudden jumpiness, and that creates a bit of excitement. It changes the atmosphere a bit from this wandering thinking to, oh my goodness, look, it's just bolted. Yes, I can go through the door. There are some more semicolons as well later on, but we will look at why they are used in a moment. So, parenthesis. There is some lovely parenthesis as daylight. Here you go. As he goes through the door, we've got some parentheses shown, and we're using a dash. We don't need the 2 dashes because it's at the end of a sentence, and we don't have a dash then a full stop. And there is at the top in that first bit again, he drew the bolt and very slowly, to make no sound, turned the doorknob. Okay, so nice bit of parenthesis. We know they add extra detailed information to it, and there's a bit more there. Lie to him. Okay, like, oh, that's where it's an afterthought almost. They deceived him. They lied to me. It's that creating that idea that we are in Tom's head, that sudden realization. Those people lied. They said there was nothing behind this door. We have some reported speech. So, here, Tom is recanting what he was told about the back garden. To show that it is reported speech, they have got inverted commas. In this publication, they have only used 1 inverted comma by itself, but we know that we can use 2, and we remember that we think of it as 66C P99. That helps us remember. Oh goodness, it's hard to write on this. I'm trying to write but not get in the way of other things that will appear, so I do apologise if it's a bit scruffy. We have got commas before a direct address within that speech as well. So if we look right about here, because we talked about this as well in SPAG last week, if you are addressing somebody directly and you use their name, we should have a comma before and after it. Okay, we've got some repetition of language. I'm going to run out of colours. Let's go green. So here, they've repeated the word nothing to give us emphasis on it. So we have the reported speech of, really, there's nothing to see. And Tom is angry at this point, or frustrated, because there is something to see. So he's going, nothing? Only this glorious back garden that I've just found. So he's repeating it to emphasize it. He's emphasizing it because it's just, and in his point of view at this time, a bold, barefaced lie. So it's repeating that idea. He's repeating it because he's frustrated, as they described what he sees as such a beautiful garden as nothing. That nothing also links between those 2 paragraphs. So he's repeated it to start the next paragraph. If the author had put all this description in this paragraph up here, it'd be way too long. Okay, because this is a different idea. The author is describing the garden. It deserves to be in a different paragraph. So to link those 2 paragraphs, they've repeated the word nothing across the 2, the end of the paragraph and the beginning of the paragraph, to make that cohesive link. That's an example of cohesion in action. We have used colons and semicolons to report an extended list. So we've got our colon to introduce the items, and because the items aren't just one word, we're not going to buy. We're not talking about shopping, Miss Tucker. Come on, get your mind off food. We're not going to the shops to buy certain items. We are currently in a garden, but he could have described it as there was a tree, beetle. Oh, not beetle. Oh goodness, Miss Tucker. There was a tree, use, greenhouse. If he did that, it would just be commas. But because the author has expanded on these points, it's not just a tree, it's a towering fir tree. Okay, it's describing, it's added that detail, so we need the semicolons in between those items on that list to stop any confusion with all the commas going on. So in here as well, we can also start thinking about personification, similes, metaphors, alliteration, and using a variety of verbs and adverbs. So the proud use humped their shapes down the sides there. We can tell that they're little humps, mounds. They're not just dotted around, okay, or twisted away. to some of the depths of the garden. Okay, we've used exciting, interesting verbs and adverbs to describe it. So because this is a descriptive piece, we also need to be thinking, yes, we need to be thinking about the basic structure, but we also need to be thinking, how can I make my description exciting? Your job is to decide on a location. So at the minute we are in quarantine and we can't go too far. But I would like you to imagine that there's a door in your house. And when you open that door, it takes you to the most wonderful place right now. Okay, it could be a bustling market somewhere. It could be a serene white beach with palm trees and the sea lapping in. It could be a secret forest. It could be dark caves to go on an adventure. It can be anywhere in the world that you like. I'd like you to try and keep it as a fictional place. No, sorry, not a fictional place. The opposite of a fictional place. A real place, a non-fiction place. A place that a person could actually visit in this world. If you would like to, it always helps me to sketch out where I'm going to go first. I'm going to describe something. Spend a bit of time sketching it out. You don't have to do all this today. You can spread it out over the week, or you can bosh it out in an afternoon. It's absolutely fine to you. But sometimes a picture helps us when we are developing descriptions. As you're writing it, keep reading. Keep reading aloud. Descriptive pieces, enjoyment pieces are made to be read aloud or to be read as a person in their head. But if you read it aloud, especially to somebody else, and say, does that sound right? What does this make you feel like? Does it make you excited if you're on an action-packed location? Say you're in the tombs of Tutankhamun and you're doing an Indiana Jones-esque kind of discovery of this amazing vault, and possibly there's like arrows whipping across, then you need it to be tense. If you're on a beach and it's serene, you want your reader to feel relaxed and in awe of the situation. So read it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. Is that how you want it to sound? If not, come back to this success criteria. What can you use from this toolkit to help embellish that writing more and to create the feeling that you want? Okay, so you have a choice of multiple ways of presenting this work if you would like. You can just write it straight out into your book. You can type it up on a computer and email it to me. You can type it up and put some pictures on. You could upload it onto Padlet, however you would like to show it. If you're writing into a book, if you want to do it in a more creative way, if you enjoyed the little pop-up bit that we did on our information text last week, as I know a lot of you did, you could consider this. Okay, so a creative way to do it, if you would like to, might be to write the first sentence as your character is starting to turn the doorknob to leave the house, and then putting a little paper door in, gluing down a little flap, and then writing your description behind the door. If you did do a drawing in your planning stage, you could even stick it on this side of the door, and then you've got your picture and then your writing. You don't have to do it like this, but it's just a nice little creative way if you would like to. Other than that, guys, happy writing, and I cannot wait to see what you have done. If you're feeling super proud of it, why not upload it to Padlet and show it for everybody else to have a look at? You're all really, really keen to read out your writing in English in our lessons in school. So a nice way to show off your work instead of reading it aloud is to pop it on Padlet if you would like to. Okay. And that was it for today, guys. Well done. Lots of tricky things in there today, so well done if you got those finished. Remember to shout out your learning. If you have done any connected curriculum stuff, we would love to see pictures of it up on Padlet for everyone to see. That'd be nice. And any extra activities that you would like to do, please have a look at these websites. Other than that, have a great day and speak to you tomorrow. Bye, Year 6.